So glad to have you all on tonight. I'm Samantha Schaffrank. I'm class of 2015, and I'm a member of the Duke Jewish Alumni Network, also known as DJAN. I'm so excited to see this group on tonight, and that we are also joined. We are joined for our Duke Jewish Alumni Network Book Club series, hosted by DJAN, Jewish Life at Duke, Jewish Book Council, Duke Libraries, and Duke Lifelong Learning. Before I pass it off, I want to tell you a little bit about DJAN. It's a Duke's Jewish alumni group, which launched over 2 years ago in 2022. I've been on the board since then, and it's just been wonderful. The mission of DJAN is to ensure that the Jewish community at Duke remains strong post-graduation. DJAN, an affiliate of Jewish Life, engages and connects Jewish alumni through opportunities to interact with peers, foster Jewish identity, and build a network of Duke Jewish alumni for social and professional interaction. DJAN welcomes alumni, students, faculty, staff, and friends of Duke. If you're a Jewish Duke alum, you're automatically a member of DJAN. You can visit the Duke Alumni Network at alumni.duke.edu and find the DJAN page to learn more about the group and upcoming events. We're always looking for volunteers interested in joining our programming and marketing committees, so look out for additional information. So I'd now like to introduce our facilitator tonight, Laurene Sperling, class of 1978. Laurene has been a member of the Duke Board of Trustees since 2010 and served as its chair from 2021 to 2024. She's an experienced trustee and leader, having served on the boards of Bell Excel, a national leader in after-school and summer programs for children at risk, Social Finance US, Harvard Business School, Dean's Board of Advisors, and many more. Laurene is currently the chair and board of directors of Combined Jewish Philanthropies in Boston. Formerly, Laurene was vice president, corporate finance investment banking at Cowen and Company in corporate finance, investment banking, and venture capital at Payne Weber in Boston. Laurene, on behalf of DJAN, thank you so much for facilitating tonight, and I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, Samantha. First of all, I'm so honored to be here with all of you this evening to discuss this extraordinary book. And Samantha, thank you for that very gracious introduction and for all the efforts you're putting forth to build such a robust Jewish alumni network. It's really, really exciting, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. So we have a very extra special treat this evening to be joined by the author of the book, Food, Hope, Resilience, June Hersh. June is a celebrated author whose works embody her philosophy of eat well and do good. June, I'm so inspired by your commitment to donate proceeds of the book and all your cookbooks to the organizations that are related to the subjects of that you cover. June's other books include Iconic New York Jewish Food, A History and Guide with Recipes, and Recipes Remembered, A Celebration of Survival. You can read more about her on her website, and I understand that she might be working on another book that perhaps she'll talk to us about. So, June, I thought I would start by just saying I found this book to be as much about history and richness of history as a recipe book. And so I wondered if you could just talk about how you conceived of it. What's the origin story for the book?
So, and thank you, first of all, for having me. I love when Jewish people come together. It's my favorite activity. And I'm going to say that lately, and certainly I think the mindset of many of us is that we need to be even more proud of our Jewish community and our Jewish identity. I call it that we need to practice extra Semitism. I think it's the only way we combat anti-Semitism. And so I love being part of an extra Semitism event on a Wednesday night. It's perfect. So thank you for having me. The book really came about very easily. In 2004, our family sold our family business. We were in the lighting business. And my sister turned to me and she said, "We did well. Now let's do good." And I was trying to think what my good was going to be, because I'm not really that good a person, but I knew I had to do something. And I knew it had to be something that I would find interesting and exciting and fun, and that would be a way to do something philanthropic. And I went to the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York. For those of you who have not been, you should. And I proposed the idea to them. I don't really know why and how it occurred to me. I don't have family members who are Holocaust survivors. But I am enamored with the mission of the museum. They celebrate the future, but they honor the past. And I just thought it was a perfect melding. And I said to them, I would love to write a book about your members. And I'll create a cookbook because I love to cook. And I really feel that the book, and I'm glad that you gave a nod to that, because for me, the book is really a storybook that has recipes. It's really not a cookbook that shares stories. And when you look at it from that perspective, you realize that I was entrusted with sharing the legacy of this remarkable community. I spoke to over 100 Holocaust survivors, and they told me their stories, and they gave their stories to me so that I could give their stories to you. And combining it with food just seemed to be a natural outgrowth. It's a thread. It goes through all of our lives. And it's happy and it's joyful and it's communal. And isn't that what we are as a people? And so the title of Food, Hope, and Resilience really encapsulates the mindset, the perspective of these people. And it came together really quite organically out of that idea.
Wow, amazing. The stories themselves were so powerful. There's some that I just can't get out of my mind. Sisters put in two lines, things like that. What were some of your major takeaways from talking to these 100 people? How did it affect you? What were your biggest takeaways from those conversations?
I think the best lesson you can learn from a Holocaust survivor is perspective. Because in our daily lives, there are so many things that are inconvenient. There are things that we say, "Oh my God, I can't believe the cable repairman canceled their appointment today." And you would think it's the worst thing that could happen. And then you think about what a Holocaust survivor endured, whether they were in a concentration camp, a death camp, whether they were a hidden child, put on a kinder transport, separated from their family. No matter what their circumstances, they were thrown from comfort to chaos, and their lives were upended. And so in those moments where I get annoyed with those little things in life, I try to draw on the stories of some of my survivors who just have imbued me with that perspective of, yeah, that's really not a big deal in the whole scheme of things. And they seem to have come through it and with the ability to live these good, amazing, productive lives, which is their best form of revenge. And so I would say that's the main thing, is to have a sense of perspective. I think being able to be resilient is an incredible gift. And there's a reason why. And I think if somebody were to do a study, they would see that people who survive the Holocaust live longer than the average person, because there is something in their DNA, their resilience, that just makes them, they have that little extra something that enable them to just go on. And so I'm so admiring of that. And again, I think when there are times where something is not perfect in my life, that I have that feeling that I can pick myself up, because look what Mary Mayer did. She was she was this privileged child in Hungary. The war came to Hungary late. She ended up going across the Danube River from the Buda side to the Pest side and found work as a farmhand. I mean, certainly not what she had grown up experiencing, but she survived. And when she saw a truck coming into this village where she was working as a laborer, and she greeted them, and she heard them speaking in Russian. And so in Russian, she said to them, "I'm a Jew, take me home." And they drove her to the edge of the Danube, and the bridge had been blown out. And I said, "Mary, what did you do?" She says, "Oh, sweetheart, it wasn't a big deal. I waited for a cold day and I walked across the frozen Danube."
Oh my gosh.
So,
Wow.
right. So when you hear a story like that and you meet the person who had that resilience to pick themselves up and say, "I'm not going to let this stop me," that just imprints so deeply. And then you go ahead and you make that person's cherished and timeless recipe. And Linzer tarts is her recipe, fabulous recipe. And if you're a good baker, it's an easy recipe. If you're not a good baker, become friends with a good baker. And it's an easier recipe. And it's a great cookie. But what makes it great is because I know Mary's story. And without the story, it's just ingredients. They don't mean as much. So I think between their resilience and their perspective, those are your best takeaways from reading the book, from reading the stories, and from meeting these incredible people.
Wow. Amazing. So the people survived. But you somehow made the recipes survive and brought them to life. I mean, I know my parents are immigrants from Iraq, and to try to recreate the recipes, there were no measurements. It's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that, and oh, the dough should feel like this. And so, how did you possibly go about recreating, the authentic recipe from their memory?
Thank you. It's a great question, and it was probably what frightened me the most, getting the story while it was deeply, so sad and so traumatic to hear them retell the story. Getting the recipe was harder because we would finish the story, we'd all take a breath, and I'd say, "Now give me the recipe," and exactly as you said, "Vel mamala, you take a little of this and a little of that." And funny comment is that when I presented the book to my publisher, I had written the word shitterine because that's the Yiddish word for a little of this and a little of that. And she's not Jewish, and she said to me, "I don't think there should be profanity in the book." And I said, "No, no, no, it's a Yiddish word. It literally translates to a handful and a handful." That was a big challenge. And so every time I got a recipe, I would first study it. I'm a fairly good amateur cook, and I would try to make sense out of it. I was told to add a half an eggshell of matzo meal to a cake. I was told to add a glass of oil. Glass of oil was a Yortzeit candle glass. They were this big back in the day. They're this big now. Certainly changes the texture of a cake when you add this much oil as opposed to this much oil. So it was a challenge, but every single night for a year, all I made were foods from these people. And I cooked them over and over until they were tasted right, they felt right, they looked right, they were able to be replicated. And I laugh, my sainted husband turned to me after a year of honestly eating nothing but what my family called Holocaust food. And he said, "For a year, we've eaten like 85-year-old Polish peasants." And he's right. But you know what? It was good, nutritious, hearty food. And eventually you get the recipe right. They were gracious. I would call them. They inevitably left out an ingredient because nobody wants you to make it as well as they do. And so I don't think I got a recipe where it wasn't, "Oh, sweetheart, I didn't tell you you need to add honey to that," or "I didn't tell you you need to refrigerate that." And I heard that over and over again. one person turned to me after I was making the recipe. It was pacha, and it was the odor in my home was truly god awful. My husband said we had to sell the house, and when I said to them, "It smells like an animal died behind my stove," the person said, "Oh, then it's done." So, it was really a trial and error of making these again and again until I was able to assign measurements. I implore everyone who is listening, if you cook with a niece, a nephew, a granddaughter, a grandson, a child, whoever you're cooking with, write it down.
Mm,
Right, because not
yeah.
everybody's going to do what I did. Write it down. They're going to want to be able to honor the tradition that you started. And unless you give them a head start with some measurements, it's not going to happen. Write it down.
My kids keep telling me this, so thank you for saying it again, and I
Yep,
will start doing that.
good.
Um, one other thing I thought about as I was reading the book is just the relationship between food and memory. And I wondered if you can speak about that. We are a religion where a lot of things take place at home, in the home, and on a weekly basis, on an annual basis, we have these cycles where there's certain kinds of food. And I just wonder if you want to comment on just the power of memory and food, and how you've seen that in your work.
Again, it's very insightful of you because there was a phenomena that took place in concentration camps. And that was that they created imaginary feasts. And there's a book that maybe some of you are familiar with, In Memory's Kitchen, which was a collection of recipes that never really existed, but they were compiled and they were edited and they were put into a book. And it was from women who were in Terezin, and it sustained them. And you would think that these people who were starving, who were eating scraps of potato to stay alive, the last thing they would want to talk about would be food. But it was the connection between their current life and their former life. And if I heard it once, I heard it 100 times. It was a connection to their mother. I heard it from,
Mm.
especially from the men I interviewed.
Mm.
They all said, when I make this dish, I'm connected to my mother. And for the most part, I would say most of them lost their parents because most of the people who I spoke to at the time were in their 80s. They're now in their 90s. Their parents, so they were children or teenagers. There was this sweet spot age where you didn't go to the left, or you were during selection, you were spared. If you were too young, you were not. If you were not useful, you were not. But so there was this group of young adults, and they all really lost that older generation because their mothers were sent to the other side. Their fathers, not always, because their fathers were viewed as being more useful, but their mothers, they felt were useless.
Mm.
And so now you had this whole group of young people who just had memories of their mothers, of the last Shabbat that they made, of the cholent that they would bring to the bakery in town, where they said that they would put all the pots of cholent would go in on right before Shabbat. They would turn off the oven at the bakeries. The pots would now sit in the ovens that had the residual heat. And because you cook cholent very low and slow anyway, so it was enough to cook them. And on Saturday after services, they would all go back to the bakery. They all knew which was their pot, even though they might have been 10 pots that looked alike. They knew from that particular aroma, from something their mother put in it that connected them back. They knew which was theirs. That's what sustained these people during the Holocaust. And this is what they brought forward into their lives and wanted to be able to recreate for their children. They wanted to build those memories. These were people whose memories were stolen from them. But you cannot take away your memory of food. You just can't. It's so palpable. An aroma takes you back to a time and place. You cannot extinguish that. And I think it was a form of resistance. You can take away our identity. You can take away members of our family. You can try to take away our dignity. You can even take away our lives, but you are not going to take away our memory. And the memory of food was the most important to them, which is why it became the framework for the book.
Wow. So powerful. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I'm curious, what's your favorite recipe? I mean, I know you talk to 100 people, you put together all these recipes. Do you have a favorite or a favorite or two?
So I have favorites because I have favorite people. And so while Hannah's cookies might not be the best, Hannah is one of my favorite people on the planet. So her cookies are absolutely delicious for me. Some of my favorite recipes are because there was a funny story. I have a recipe that did not make it into the book. I asked her for another one because her husband confided in me after she gave me the recipe that it was not edible. And he said it to me. He said, I need to walk you to the elevator. And I said, but you said it was the best recipe. He said, I said it was the best because her elbow was digging into my ribs and I really had no option. But no, do not make that recipe. And then very candidly, he then said to me, and I need to share with you that I'm 6 years older than she thinks I am. So he was a character. But the recipe she eventually gave me became one of my favorite recipes because I associate it with this amazing story of her husband and the experience I had. From a culinary standpoint, the lentil soup is foolproof. All you truly have to do is know how to boil water. And it is just the easiest recipe. And it's part of my heritage is Sephardic. And it's a Sephardic recipe. And I love it because you add balsamic vinegar into the bowl before you serve it. And the vinegar rises up to the sides and adds this fabulous tang to what's otherwise sometimes a very bland or boring soup. There's a chocolate mousse that I make at the holidays. It's a wonderful light way to end a meal. Passover is coming up. There's a great barbecued brisket. Surprise your guests. Do not make a brisket with Lipton onion soup on it. Do something unconventional. And sometimes when I make it, I even tear it apart and I'll mix it with, again, because I'm Sephardic, I can mix it with beans or with something else. And you make like this really wonderful stew with it because it's great to shred. Not during Passover, but it's fabulous as a slider. So, the book has a lot of wonderful Passover recipes. Of course, it has potato latkes, and of course, it has matzo ball soup and gefilte fish. It's really the unexpected recipes that are so special because we found ourselves in so many far-flung places, and the foods represent everywhere where we landed. And so there's food from the Dominican Republic, and there's food from Argentina, and there's fabulous Italian food from Milan. And so I love that you can make a dish. I make it at Passover. It's a chicken simmis dish, and it's really a wonderful, wonderful dish with prunes. And you get the simmis in the dish with prunes and apricots and all these fabulous things. But you also get the chicken that's baked and it's sweet, and it's came from a woman who found herself in Argentina, and her aunt who lived there taught her how to make this. Those are among my favorites.
Wonderful. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. If you do, please put them in the chat. I'm wondering if you can are you in fact working on another cookbook?
So I am working on another book. Is there
anything that you can tell us about it?
We cannot share the title, which we firmed up yesterday, and we cannot share the cover, which we're going to firm up tomorrow. But I am writing it with this acclaimed chef, Alon Shaya, who is a 2 times James Beard Award-winning chef. He has an amazing number of amazing restaurants, but he's most known for his restaurant in New Orleans. And he had done a fabulous project related to a Hungarian cookbook. And it's a story of how this book was rescued from the ashes of Auschwitz. And when he heard what I write and I had heard what he wrote, we just naturally connected. And he said, let's write a book together. So we're looking at stories from World War II, predominantly Jewish and Holocaust related, but not only. I will tell you that it took us to a Navajo reservation. It took us to a Japanese internment camp. It has taken us to the Dominican Republic. It's taken us to a village in France. And so it's really going to be I'm doing the historical story aspect, and I'm going to let the James Beard Award-winning chef do the cooking. So he's writing the recipes and I'm writing the stories with his input. And it's really going to be very excited. It's going to come out in September of 26. And HarperCollins is our publisher. And so I could not be more excited.
Wow, that is so exciting. I've tried to get into his restaurant a couple of times in New Orleans without any luck, but I will keep trying.
Okay, well, if you need help with that, so it's Alon, A-L-O-N, and it's Shaya, S-H-A-Y-A, and his well-known restaurant in New Orleans is Saba, and it is worth working hard to get a reservation too. So
okay, wonderful.
It's excellent. Yeah. So thank you for asking that. We're very excited about it.
Well, I mean, what an amazing array of cookbooks, and you've certainly inspired me to try to recreate recipes, not just in my head and do them, but to write them down for my children.
Good girl.
I found, and I saw this throughout the book too, that for a while, the survivors really didn't talk to their children much about their experience because it was so traumatic, and also just because they wanted their children to have a better life. And correct. I found that with my own parents, that it wasn't until much later in their lives that I was able to find their stories. And what I find now is it's the next generation that is craving the recipes and the stories, and I think that hopefully their longing will inspire us all to really.
I hope so. I think there's a lot of nostalgia, and I also think that this generation, and good for them, they like to know the provenance of things. I love to know the why to the what. Why do we eat what we eat? This generation, these younger generation, seems to like to know where something came from, where this dish or originate. And so they're curious, and they're curious about food. And so it's really a wonderful melding, because I think no matter what your tradition is, no matter what your heritage is, it's wonderful to be able to dig in and explore it. I would say, just as a plug, and you mentioned it, all the proceeds from the sale of the book, not just some of them, but all the proceeds, right now go to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. And if you go on my website, which is pretty easy, junehersh.com, and you purchase a book, I can inscribe it to anybody you want. I'm going to say, you've got Passover coming up. Bring a book. Don't bring soggy latkes. They're making their own latkes. Bring a book. It's such a great gift to bring people, or buy it for Mother's Day. And it doesn't have to just be for your Jewish mother. It can be for anybody's mother, Jewish, not Jewish. But there's a code that I think we can share. It will give you a discount. And then I get to donate those proceeds, and you get this, what I'd like to say is a beautiful book. So I encourage people to go on the site and order it. I'll be home on Monday, and I will get those out to you on Tuesday, and you'll have them in plenty of time for the holiday, and they'll be personalized. So it's all good.
Wonderful. Well, June, you have been so gracious with your time. It is such a treat that we were able to hear from you tonight. Thank you so much. And thank you for the history and for this whole endeavor. We're incredibly inspired by it, and I'm looking forward to discussing the book further with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful. Wonderful to be with you. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? Did she already get off the phone?
No, I'm here.
No.
Wonderful. Do you ever travel? Do you ever do cooking demonstrations? Do people bring you in to talk about the book and maybe
Oh,
demonstrate recipes?
I have, with my husband, we have probably been to 300 places across the country. I used to say, if you have a living room, I have a talk to give. I share this book with anyone and everyone. My kids laugh. They used to say I'd follow people into bathrooms to tell them about the book. So if anyone is there who would like me to speak, I spoke in Miami last week, Naples 2 days after that, speaking in New Jersey twice next week. In two different for two different JCCs. I speak on behalf of Federation, Hadassah, the Jewish Book Council. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm the current president of our federation, and I was just thinking you would be the most amazing
Thank you. I
program.
appreciate it. I
Thank
do
you.
food demonstrations. It's not my favorite thing to do. I'd really much rather talk about the people
Talk
and
about
the
books.
stories. But I'm pretty malleable. I'm pretty flexible.
Well, you could do the talking and I could do the cooking.
There you
All
go. I
right.
like it.
Sounds amazing.
Sounds good. Feel free to email me.
Yeah.
And go
Wonderful.
Duke. I have you as winning it all. So
Good. Thank you. Thanks so much, June.